Hey guys, welcome back. Uh, Going online today here with a new analog audio processing setup. Previously, the master mixing, if you will, coming from where I was putting it, set it up into YouTube, was handled by a VST plugin, um, something called stereo tool from within OBS, and maybe I'll show you that here in a second. It was a nice solution. Seemed like that was taking a little bit more out of the uh, streaming machine than really had available. So now that has been replaced with a fiber optic, take an audio output from my Mini and run it through an external box. So finally, got all that rigged up. Took a little bit of time and mounted the encoding, the streaming Raspberry Pi stuff together. So that's what we see here on the screen. This is the Raspberry Pi that I just restarted Nginx on, in fact. And it handles the real-time H.264 encoding, where I take the video out of the OBS computer and ship it off up to YouTube. So it's a pretty neat solution. The Raspberry Pi is capable out of the box in the modern software. It says that it's capable of 25 megabit H.264 encoding, and so that's what I've got this stream set to. It actually is not really that good at bandwidth control, so I've seen it, spike as high as 40 megabits, when set that low. There's not a lot of control over it. It's kind of a Broadcom sort of black box behind the scenes, but it works a whole lot better than it used to. So this Raspberry Pi, it's a Compute Module 4, the 8 gigabyte variety. It could just as easily be a regular Pi. There's not anything in this configuration that's specific. Actually, with the exception of the SSD. But so yeah, so just to give sort of a highlight here, what we see on screen. I have a kind of pointer, please. This module here is it's an RGCam HDMI to CSI converter. So it basically plugs in the same port as if it were a regular Raspberry Pi camera. Get that focused a little bit better. So right next to it, what you're actually seeing is the PCI Express expansion slot that you can get with the Compute Module 4. It's only an X1 slot, and I'm not sure if it's Gen 2. I think it's Gen 2. I'm not sure if it's capable of beyond that. What I've actually done there is I've actually just extended it down into a USB PCI card, PCI Express card. If we go in for a zoom in on that, that is actually the same chipset that's actually in the regular Raspberry Pi 4. That being the thing, the compute module doesn't have USB 3 support built in, so I've used just a regular card to achieve that same goal. I was able to flash the native Raspberry Pi 4 VLSI hub USB controller firmware. I was able to get the same chip and flash the firmware into that card. I had a lot of problems with the USB 3 support. Ultimately, I had purchased it's a JMS 583 based NVMe enclosure to USB-C NVMe enclosure, and it was really the only external drive that I could find that had a functional heatsink. I appreciate that most people don't upload, at the SSD's rated write capacity constantly for weeks at a time, but I kind of really wanted to have that functionality. I have it with my SATA drives. I'm using the some Intel data center, both in the routers and the TV boxes. But I wasn't able to find. I just wanted an upgraded level of performance, and so that led me down the rabbit hole of getting the Solidigum P44 Pro enterprise SSD, and then trying to find a controller that would run it. And the point being that SSD, that's a JMS 583 enclosure, there's a lot of SSD. I've had a lot of SSD problems with these Raspberry Pi 4B devices. That's the version 1.5 hardware. It's the 8 gigabyte model. And, I've had a number of, where I've got to either power the USB 3 device externally or things of that nature. So there may be, in fact, an advantage, a compatibility advantage to the non-8 gigabyte model Raspberry Pi 4s. But anyway, yeah, long story short, went off down that rabbit hole and was the solution we see on screen actually runs the drive with no problem and pretends to be the very Raspberry Pi that we're talking about here. Couple other just points of note here. This over on the right is it's a GPIO connected. It's I2C real-time clock module. The not having a clock, is kind of a drag at times. So one thing I like to have here on the network is a local NTP time server. So typically I use Crony for that these days. So this module is nice because it's also able to offer the PPS, pulse per second, where you get a 1 hertz pulse like they do for timekeeping in GPS modules. Probably have that. Yeah, so, okay, for one reason or another, PPS 0 did not initialize properly, but you can see from the responsiveness here that it's, one way or another, it's, I haven't looked at this actually in some time, but plus or minus 1600 nanoseconds, that's pretty precise compared to, those other sources that are listed there. It may be working properly on one of these other boxes. No, this one is, I don't know, it's got an X there as well. This one's plus or minus 90 microseconds. I think that's not as good as nanoseconds, but anyway, that functionality enables the Raspberry, the module itself, so which were $2 a piece, I want to say, enables the Raspberry Pi to continuously, have reliable timekeeping in the event of a network outage, and I try and like to try and remain independent. Yes, yeah, it's one thing they can just about anything can ride through an outage. If the internet goes out and comes back, the problem is, and what really started my thinking all this was when we lost everything during the hurricane. And even just trying to, when we finally got power back, like 2 weeks later, even just trying to boot up the servers in the absence of the internet, so in the absence of timekeeping and DNS and CRLs, certificates and verification and whatnot, it was really a pain. So, I had my cell phone tethered because, I had to have some form of, communication just to kind of get things bootstrapped. So that's, one thing that's led to, this interest in, self, uh, yeah, subsistence or whatever. But yeah, so it's been a good solution. And yeah, just so by taking the Raspberry Pi and, screwing everything to a backboard tends to help with reliability. So yeah, and also just choosing you got a unified power supply. Just taking 12 volts in, just to put, the single, everything on the same DC source. So USB hub, the top, there we see a VGA converter. That's, I don't know, just the cheapest way to make what I have work. And then down at the bottom, a black magic converter, which which turns computer graphics into real video, sits there. So fun stuff. Hopefully keep things reliable. But back on the display here. What was that called? Yeah, this was a pretty cool what's the word? Plugin. I don't know. OBS has some neat capabilities, and it enables a lot of pretty cool things to happen. One thing that had never really lodged itself in my brain, broadcasting FM is a pretty straightforward thing. It's a frequency modulated wave, and you can pick it up in mono on a radio. Nothing to it. So FM radio's been around a long time. At some point, they invented stereo, and to enable backwards compatibility, like they always do, they just kind of layered another protocol on top of there. So that's made it difficult to make stereo for, mere mortals, just because you need these specialized algorithms and so on and so forth. Turns out all that can be provided, these days in software. And so that's an initial function of this this stereo tool application. What it's initially designed for is to allow you to use just a basic FM carrier wave transmitter with customized software to do all the specialized stereo encoding in software. So I don't know how often any of us, wants to fire up a high quality pirate radio station. But that's a neat, I don't know. It's a pretty neat thing. By default, it's watermarked. Every few, 10 minutes or something, audio watermark. But it turns out that the functions that I wanted, some of its more esoteric, audio features of, stereo and phase rotation, audio, processing that you might want, if you were going live on the air. Yeah, those were actually free. So, that's pretty neat. One of the things I picked up along the way was that in broadcasting, phase rotation, with audio signals is actually a pretty key component, because a lot of the human voice in many things actually is air sucked in. I don't know, something about physics or sound or something. So yeah, so this has all it was cool at the time, been replaced in hardware now, thanks to our, newly mounted and cleaned up Raspberry Pi video solution. So along that note, had been previously looking at some Tableau video. Well, that's kind of doing its thing for the moment. There we go. Yeah, so just with respect to, looking at some of that stuff down, in the seasonal closet, this view actually shows us a little bit coming out of and in the neighborhood of the the frequency converter. I've got a just good old-fashioned RTL SDR plugged in. And so one of the nice things about this whole structured wiring mess is that I can plug in a SDR, pretty much at any point in the pipeline, if you will, and get kind of a picture of what's going on. Normally, the way I tap into that, I just have like you can see, I just got a long USB cable coming out the back of that. It actually just goes into a machine that I kind of can remote desktop into. And so with that, connectivity, I can fire up an SDR app and leave it running to kind of build some time. What's the word there? Time, history. So here's my. Can I do? Why is that small? Bigger. Hey. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. What you're seeing actually along the bottom of the window, those icons are generated from the free RDP client software that I use. It's free because it only allows you to maintain a connection for 5 minutes. But, for this functionality, that's about all I need. So it looks like what I'm looking at here is the what I would receive just straight in off one of the antennas with no signal processing. See the spike a little above 185 there. That's UHF channel 13. And then I believe these other two were, I think it's UHF channel 17, 20, 28, and the list goes on from there. So, the blue at the bottom, essentially that's our noise level. And this stuff isn't really calibrated, but the important part is the signal to noise ratio. What those levels are like in relation to one another. And you can see here, there's not a whole lot of room. I guess if I look from channel 13, if I look from the top of I get negative 60 to negative 95. So, that's 30 something dB. That's good, if that's, an accurate representation. But the UHF channels certainly are a lot lower, let's say by 10 dB. So, a different view of that same app. This is SSAT SA-Gen. Like I say, I think it works with pretty much anything you can make RTL SDR, talk to. My modules have the E4000, excuse me. I'm using modules based on the E4000 chipset, but that chipset isn't in production anymore. What we're looking at here, essentially, this is a traditional TV waveform. Back when analog video was a thing. Yeah, again here, that's 6 megahertz. That's, like I say, that's the spectrum allocation for a TV channel. Like we see here, this is what used to be broadcast over the air. It's a little bit more complicated than that because, certainly in the case of analog, physics kind of get in the way. So it's difficult to truly utilize a 6 megahertz wide carrier without, some kind of flop, spillage on the sides. And so, in high power operations, especially, there's not a lot of, back-to-back channel operation. NTSC video being older, a lot of that stuff was, they were lucky to get, 3 channels away from something. Yeah, and there were, many cases interactions between channels as far away as plus and minus 6. So, yeah, that's my camera system. That's not related. Yeah, FCC, all kinds of great information. They even give you little maps, and then you buy the filters, and then this is the noise floor of the adapter. And so this is now one of the latest views of the final output of the antenna system, of the Avant system. The carriers on the right have been kind of picked from all over the radio spectrum of different antenna inputs, and they've just been put in a nice, orderly spot. Let's see, several different views of that. And yeah, you can see the side lobes, on any, plot, how things tend to leak over into adjacent channels. Here's a bunch of stuff. So yeah, so this is, another view there. All of those are spaced. What I've done is done my best to space the HD carriers into the uplink portions of the cellular band of the LTE 600 megahertz band. T-Mobile's operating in this area, just to keep interference as low as possible. Previously, before I had the ability to remap channels in that way, I would try and space those into. I would try and put analog channels there. But since I'm able to, the advantage of moving the channel is that so you don't have additional interference. Because regardless of how good of a job I do taking in channel 21 from a rooftop antenna, boosting it, and feeding it through to my display device, there's always going to be a certain amount of leakage of that same channel into the electronics in the back of the set, into shielding along the cable along the way, just in through the noise, any other noise path. And so by remapping that stuff into some other frequency, it doesn't even matter specifically where, but just some different one, you gain a lot less. It definitely helps things out. So we're kind of going backwards in time with this photo album here. These are some of the results that I was able to get prior to the digital processor. So, receiving the the TV band as best as possible, aiming my antenna as best as I could, and combining a lot of filters, like an LTE high pass, or I'm sorry, low pass filter that you would use. By running the spectrum analyzer over time, you can see where it'll develop a nice, clean, sort of red, peak area. These here then being these are analog NTSC signals coming out of my modulators, and you can see what a difference. Whereas these HD carriers, they've tried to pack them quite tightly into 6 megahertz. Here we actually see three peaks. We see the audio carrier. It's just one carrier with the different frequencies kind of, stereos kind of modulated in there. And we see the main video carrier. There's also a mirror of the video carrier. That's the thing about it's a single sideband. What they do is they take a symmetrical waveform. For example, this chroma carrier is used in NTSC, and they essentially throw half of it away. The same thing is happening with this Luma. You see the Luma carrier there. That is actually a symmetrical. It's actually a symmetrical, waveform. And so it then goes. It has output on both sides of the carrier frequency in question, but the analog electronics in these in the modulator aren't selective enough to filter that out entirely. So, you definitely see. So that's one of the reasons that a residential modulator is not, commercial quality, is because not only can you not put these back to back in an adjacent channel, you can't even put them every other channel. There's just too much noise. I mean, depending on your standards, but there's definitely visible interference. So the closest I've been successful at putting residential modulators is every 4 channels. I then combine that with the televs and tell it to actually filter those outputs, and I'm able to then run effectively every other channel. I don't, feel compelled to push physics any more than necessary. So here we see an extremely old version of the system. We can still see that there's an analog modulator somewhere centered around 717. That's going to be one of my attempts to put the analog channels into holes in the LTE band. And so then you can see, certainly the potential impact of LTE frequencies, in that 730, to 760 range. It's not a good idea to try and put analog channels there. You can get away with it with the digital channels because it just adds, a dB or 2 noise, and then everything gets decoded, everything's fine. But analog NTSC, the only way you're going to maintain a black is in the complete absence of noise. So here in the current generation of system, I found that the best place to place analog modulators is actually holes in the broadcast band. So, between UHF HD carriers, that are on the, on the air interface side, actually, putting the analog carriers there is the quietest I've been able to locate. So this is all old. I don't even remember what I was doing other than trying to find free space in the airwaves. So once upon a time, US television channels went up to 83. They then sold off everything above 69 to the cell phone, the amps, 800 megahertz cellular people. Then they did the same thing where they hacked off the band around in the in the 50s and made that LTE. And then they took the the 600 band from us recently, making 36 the the highest channel, available for digital broadcast. So, given the bandwidth and compression and how much better these things, how much more watchable for a given signal level digital stuff is compared to the way things were, the loss of bandwidth is fine. It's not a problem. So yeah, this is an example of an off-the-air signal coming in my area. These channels don't all broadcast through the same area, and they're not all intended to serve the same market. I pick, for example, the one on the right is 36. I pick number 35. 33 is an alternate for me for PBS. But yeah, to be able to take, here's a view over time where you can see LTE interference, on the right side there. Looks like we've got a pretty strong, downlink, maybe centered around 625, but some uplink, further to the right. So, in this case, that's not where you want to put an analog modulator. But to be able to go from this, and back in this time, I was doing a lot of homemade antenna stuff. But to be able to go from that, and is this that's not current. That's not, no, those are LTE carriers. Which one did I claim was current? Yeah, that's a time. That's a whole lot. Everybody's at the same level. And then by putting the RF carriers at the same level, there's actually a pretty big, that actually really helps the tuning performance in the set top as well. Because there's an automatic gain, a certain amount of automatic gain control happens on the RF side that doesn't need to happen anymore. If all those signals are coming in at the same level, the PL, everything is, the PLLs are already stabilized, all that kind of stuff. It's only got to move, 200 megahertz to the right, or whatever. No, not even 200, it'd be 12. But yeah, and it gets another, identical, carrier frequency, and away it goes. So this solution has worked pretty well. And so then this is what's fed into the tableaus and HD home runs and so that sort of stuff. So reception, reliability, consistency is really quite good. There's only one channel, that goofy channel 36. It's the worst position in the band. There's an LTE signal, a 600 megahertz LTE right above it. Yeah, and that's what these filters are, designed to help. That top one is 800 megahertz only. Then I think that second one is 700, and then I also had 600. I mean, I tried all the things also just to be able to try all the things, just to gauge even their effectiveness for a dated task. So, all right. So I think previously we were looking at this, or like that. And so yeah, so then all that stuff gets brought down onto Apple TV, which, I can either pick a... Ooh, they've upgraded their loading graphic. Oh, well, it used to work. And then VLC sees the media pretty much over every protocol I could find to configure. It seems to see the HD home run without issues. Yeah. Wish VLC was a little bit prettier. In the sense that like there's not really anything done with thumbnails. I mean, I can pick a SMB server. You know, I've tried every protocol documented for some sort of, folder.jpg or icon, or I get no images. So that's, annoying. NFS support is hit or miss. I mean, I really mean that. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. And yeah, so there it just refused to do NFS. So I can connect to server, NFS, server, and FS, which is its actual server name. Connect, and it works. So that's strange. The VLC on different platforms works. The NFS works. It works on my Android phone. I don't know if I can't recall if there's an option on Windows or not. DLNA, I think I have not found the right, the best streamer yet. This is Mini UPnPD, and I don't really, have any issues with it. It's just, it seems like some parts of it are more reverse engineered than like fully implemented. I don't know, like for example, the logo is a baked in binary. There's no just, library or include or something like that. So, yeah, and I guess I do see, yeah, DLNA gives me images in VLC. So, I mean, they're square. I don't know what that's about, but okay. You do your square images. Yeah, and then the other protocols they give you the choice are Plex, which I don't even understand what you have to have anymore, but username, I don't know, seems too cloudy for me. And SFTP, which I'm not really sure what the motivation for this was. I guess it was as a way of providing a secured connection. I mean, FTP I get, and it's just terrible. It's not practical to support that, for me in any way, and it doesn't offer any advantage over HTTP. Like I say, in a screen like this on local network, I'd use SMB. But SFTP actually, I've actually been able to make that work functionally, because out of all these choices, it's the only one that you could really use in the absence of being on the network. So, like as an alternative to a VPN, SFTP can get the job done. Let's see. I don't remember if that still works. There were some technical issues. Basically, that I try and make these things as friendly for normal people as possible, but SFTP was in the way of my own administration. 9, 9. But I did succeed to make it anonymous. Yeah, there we go. So anonymous FTP is a pretty well understood thing. Anonymous web access is the default. Anonymous SFTP is kind of not really a thing. But what I did there, let's see, is that what I need? Work. I've spent a little bit of time mucking around in the Dropbear source code and essentially was able to like modify all of the certificate and security settings to their absolute minimum, and then able to eliminate the password validation, and mostly even eliminated the username requirement. Now, to be fair, anonymous FTP, the username is, FTP or anonymous. I mean, there's still some form of, username passwordness kind of baked in there. But, and this is sort of the same kind of thing. But the short version of the story is, yeah, it works pretty good. Yeah. Let's see, right. Yeah, just essentially marking it as a valid user out of the box, and yeah, replacing user validate with auth success. And then I don't remember what all that is, but yeah, that was pretty much it. Yeah, providing a default username in the absence of a provided one. So that actually worked pretty good, and then I was able to build a chroot for it, which is not much. It's a folder that is a collection of bind mounts to other places in the file system for content. Yeah, there weren't really many tools. So what wound up being the thing was I had to combine the SFTP. They combined the SFTP app from a traditional OpenSFTP. Yeah, this one. They take the regular package out of OpenSSH. I don't really want to be that verbose. So yeah, so just making that the login shell. Yeah, there's no opportunity to get a shell. The SFTP server is marked as the shell for the anonymous, account essentially. And that, yeah, that works pretty good. I mean, I guess the lesson I learned was that it's very confusing to people to have a regular SSH server on port 22 and then to require them to use a non-standard port, because I mean they just think that the two servers are too confusing. So going forward, I think I'm just going to use a separate hard-coded management IP and sort of put everybody on. Just have one public IP for one IP for all the services. But it works to advertising it on the network works pretty good. Yeah, I found this thing gets picked up quite easily. So yeah, so that's that's one way to kind of get in there and serve access. It's a solution for non-client access from the outer, reaches of the internet. Client-wise, I've still had good luck with the HTSP, the TD head end type clients. So let's look at some of that. The official client. Yep, all of that's broken. So really the most convenient protocol. So that's VLC. So it sure would be nice if it gave us something other than SFTP, because SFTP is kind of trash. And obviously just a bad hack. The nicest app I found for getting in there, like from an Apple TV, has got to be Infuse. But the price on that is so completely stupid that I won't give it any use except for a diagnostic tool. God, it's beautiful. Somebody has really spent the time, and I mean, they've got a metadata provider. It really is gorgeous. And it has just built and scraped this data. Some of the things are wrong. It's a little aggressive in what it's, this is not an episode of PBS Nature, I'm sure. But most of them look right. So it will let you do one or two things for free, but then before you know it, you've clicked on something that requires $100 upfront purchase. I mean, I guess I could pay $8 a month, but no. That sure doesn't look like Chicago PD. Not the one I watch. And generally, it leads me to something that tells me that I need to, yeah. It's got some nice the settings are where all the good stuff is. Oh, yeah. Because it's got a great, like, browsing. Like, it finds everything. Over using a Bonjour or Avahai. Yeah, picks up native SMB service and WebDAV. I mean, WebDAV is a normal protocol that is easy to tunnel through firewalls and over the internet. I mean, hooray. It's really in like a mood right now. I think I broke the network. Oh, let's pick that JPEG. Right, because I recently cleaned up my disk space. Sure not going very fast. I didn't know I had a graph. Okay, so NFS is broken here. Let's try good old-fashioned SMB. So on the positive side, I think they say that when you buy the lifetime, it's good for all the platforms. So the iPad experience is like equally terrific. But yeah, I certainly like this functionality. And then the web dev does work. I feel like I've broken, and I believe it's got a HTTPS web dev as well. And the speed is good. My HTTP is somewhat, limited for normal purposes, but yeah, and so I was actually surprised how fast, so maybe mini UPnPD is not the wrong choice, because this thing is fast. Whereas I'm getting 65 meg through a fairly well tweaked Samba SMB.conf thing. Here's mini UPnP. Now it does have, I did give it extra priority because UPnP tries to do live media streaming as well. So that's the protocol that's natively used by the HD home runs. I don't know why everything is broken. $2 a month is not the worst, but I mean, I'm really a forever pro kind of guy. But the problem there is that, it's not my Apple ID on the living room TV. All right, so SetIP also speaks a version of the UPnP network protocol. Something gonna happen here. A lot of these have pretty bad. Everybody outside of the big names, VLC, the user interface experience is pretty bad. A lot of those apps are pretty dated. Owl Files is a pretty amazing offering. They give you a certain amount of functionality for free. And then it's like if you want to have more than 3 drive mounts or something, you got to start giving them money. Let's see. We got icons. Only on files, not folders. All right, so yeah, one of these I think is a MP4. Oh, no, that one's just broken. It's going to play it anyway.
Television. Every have influenced devices that are essential parts of our everyday.
Here it goes. So that was SMB. Add a web app is broken. SFTP, the world's dumbest non-existent protocol. So it's neat to make that it looks like it's got some form of discovery. I think what it's really doing is like port scanning the network. I never quite got it clear. We're at 117. So let's see. It's a messy visual. All right, so that Apple TV is host. We're at 179. So I think, yeah, it just goes out there and does a, an S3 support. I've not seen anything else, in the App Store or whatever. But yeah, this Howl Files, they have an Android version here. Obviously, this is Apple TV. These are all just cosmetics. What color would you like it to be? But yeah, it seems pretty nice, and yeah, the iPad version is nice. I'm not sure what I'm trying to accomplish here. We get NFS. We're not 113. That's strange for it to just kind of arbitrarily announce that. All right, so yes, so I would say that it is implementing some form of fairly aggressive network discovery. Who has 60? 60 is it blah, 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 blah. So then it tries to connect straight away to the 137, the NetBIOS name server port. Yeah, so 60 is my Tableau, the old one. All right, well, let's see what it does. Oh, I didn't see NFS. That's... Yes. Yeah, so I've tried the SFTP. It does work. Anyway, at some point you do start to hit limits, but I think that you could be crafty and stay in the free tier without too much work. Yeah, so there's a lot of terrible things that don't work. Playlist, huh? Not gonna try and necessarily learn it on the fly. RDHD home run app. It doesn't work either.
Right. You know, yet we've made necklaces all one length.
Yeah,
and that's not convenient. We have this in 3 different lengths, by the way, as well. So this is something.
This series I found helpful. GH software, GH standing for generally helpful. It goes out and logs into multiple HD home run tuners and does sort of like a time signal analysis. I don't know, the iPad version's better. This is slightly terrifying. But yeah, Tableau, the native app, obviously for the Tableau. This is going up against current 4th generation model. Got a terabyte of enterprise SSD storage. And I've been really impressed with the, what's the word I'm looking for? Well, number one, the tuner is significantly better. I think they're probably the best tuners on the network right now. Looking inside at some of the chipset documentation, it's a DVB-T2. It's primarily a DVB-T2 chipset out of Europe. But yeah, they've got this custom firmware blob that's loaded into it. Probably be nice if somebody could, figure that out for US folks, because I've not been really pleased with the USB tuners that are available for purchase at the given price points. But yeah, so it records things and it finds metadata for them, and this is all in the free Tableau 4 universe. I've been real pleased with the performance.
And in between,
one of the reasons I was so, determined, because I got an original Tableau HDMI even before I got the HD Home Run, and it was just because of experience in the past with TiVo, how great the performance is with a hardwired, DVR versus some terrible software app. Even streaming, can have an awful lot of lag in it these days. But this thing works quite well. Been very, very pleased. They have, I've noticed, started to add non-recordable channels. That's unfortunate. Requires some investigation. But one of the biggest advantages of the Tableaus over still, HD Home Run and whatnot, automatic like show expiration. Now, it's been, nearly a year since I've given HD Home Run any money, so I'm not, using their DVR service anymore. But certainly at the time, that was a big issue, was just deleting content either that was already, viewed, or that you wanted to, just to make room for new content. Now, the plus being that it was easy to script all that, to be what I wanted. The, other side being that maybe I shouldn't have had to. But lots of channels with numbers that come from the antenna. Plenty of channels, without numbers that come from, wherever they come from on the internet. So they do, do a pretty good job. I just need to get on that latest, I can't record this one either. Interesting. I don't spend a lot of time in the live.
But I'll tell you what.
TV ecosystem. But they provide all kinds of metadata and other things. And they're definitely a more interesting, top row channel than HD Home Run. So I don't know that that's any kind of a guide, but I think it says Smart IPTV is not. Smarters are smarter. Smarty pants, no, they're all bad. There's nothing smart there. All right, well, that's probably enough action from one day. I've been kind of all over the map with this agenda, but it's been kind of a little bit technology test as well. So everything's worked out well. So I'll go have some sort of beverage. Stop window. Not window. I will see you folks later. Thanks a lot. Bye.